Hello everyone and welcome back to the Dungeon Learner's Guide. Today we're doing something a little bit different that is going to last us every day for the month of June. We are doing a daily Pride deck every single day to try to celebrate some of the diversity of the LGBTQ+ community, since it is Pride Month after all. And you may remember last year I put together a deck for every single day in June that was a deck using two non-partner commanders as partners for the deck. And I did a video at the end of the month showcasing all 30 of them, but I didn't actually go through each of them and talk about them in depth in the way that I would like to. So this is probably going to be my most ambitious challenge for the channel so far, because every single day this month, you are going to get a new deck tech video on one of those 30 decks that we covered last year in a more in-depth view. So without any further ado, let's start talking about our first daily Pride Month deck, and that is Femininomenon. And as I mentioned, we are building this commander deck with two non-partner commanders. We are sticking to our Commanders Guild budget of $100 or less, and this is, like I said, our way to celebrate the diversity for June. So our partners for this week, our commanders, are going to be Cattie-brie of Mithril Hall and Jirina, Dauntless General, giving us an Abzan deck if we combine the color identities of both commanders. Cattie-brie is green and a white for a 2/2 human archer. She's got first strike and reach. Whenever she attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on her for each equipment attached to it, and you can pay 1 to remove all +1/+1 counters from Cattie-brie and deal X damage to target attacking or blocking creature and opponent controls, where X is the number of counters removed this way. And her partner for our Femininomenon is Jirina, which is a white and a black for a 2/2 legendary creature human soldier, and when she enters the battlefield, exile target player's graveyard. Then you can sacrifice Jirina, and humans you control gain hexproof and indestructible until the end of turn. So some of the themes for this deck and what really makes it function. The main one, as you may have noticed, both of our commanders do something very different, so I wanted to really build on that. So our first theme is going to be humans. Since Jirina can protect our human creatures and both of our commanders are humans, we have a great build around for a human kindred deck, especially when we're looking at cards like Coppercoat Vanguard, which is 1 and a white for a 2/2 human soldier, and each other human you control gets +1/+0 and has Ward 1. So being able to pump up the entire team, protect them a little bit, gives us a little bit of an edge when it comes to flooding the board with a lot of creatures, because now we don't have to worry about them getting picked off or even blocked really, because they're going to be a little bit bigger. So of course, leaning into the human aspect. Our second theme looks a little bit more at our other commander, Cattie-brie, and that is equipment. So being able to play cards like Cranial Plating, which is 2 mana for an artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+0 for each artifact you control, and you can pay a black to attach Cranial Plating to target creature you control, or you can simply equip it for 1. So this is kind of the other alternative axis of our deck. So not only are we trying to go wide with our human support, but we're also trying to go tall with our equipment support. So we're kind of playing into both of our commander's strengths and hopefully using that to shore up some of our weaknesses so we can hit people with one giant threat or a lot of little threats. And then to really tie everything together, we come to our final third theme, which is going to be +1/+1 counters. And this is something that a lot of humans actually do. They actually do care about +1/+1 counters quite a bit. So to represent that, we have Carvanista Loyal Lupari for 4 and a green. It's a 5/5 alien dog soldier. It has vigilance, trample, and haste, and whenever it attacks, you put a +1/+1 counter on each human you control. Plus, it also has an adventure, Lupari Shield, 1 and a green for a sorcery. Humans you control gain indestructible until your next turn. So while the Lupari isn't a human itself, it does protect our humans, giving them indestructible, and it also puts a ton of +1/+1 counters on them, getting an extra counter every time it attacks, so it can build up our board so even tiny humans can eventually become big threats. But that is the general theme of this deck. We're trying to play humans, trying to equip them with our equipments, and then put some +1/+1 counters on them to close out the game. But with all of that being said, let's move on to our next section of this deck tech and talk about some of the key cards that are in this deck. So first off, we have Kyler, Sigardian Emissary, which is 3 green-white for a 2/2 legendary creature human cleric. Whenever another human enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Kyler, Sigardian Emissary, and other humans you control get +1/+1 for each counter on Kyler. So if Kyler comes in just as a 5-mana 2/2 and one other human enters, then Kyler becomes a 3/3, and since we have a +1/+1 counter on Kyler, all of our other humans are also going to get +1/+1. Since we can make a ton of humans, it is not beyond the realm of possibilities that Kyler becomes absolutely massive, and then all of a sudden, all of our humans are getting absolutely massive. That can put us in a position where we can really increase the number of +1/+1 counters, and every single creature we have becomes a threat, so we can maybe attach some equipment, do a little bit of damage, attack, and no matter what our opponents block, they're still going to take a ton of damage. Our second key card that I want to highlight is going to be Catilda Dawnheart Prime, which is a green and a white for a 1/1 human warlock. She has protection from werewolves, and human creatures you control have tap, add 1 mana of any of this creature's colors, and you can pay 6 mana for a green and a white, and tap her to put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. So again, another +1/+1 counter, not necessarily payoff, but a support piece in that way. But really what we want her for is to be able to give all of our humans the ability to tap for mana of any color. And while it's only going to affect the color of the creature that is tapping, most of our creatures are going to tap for either a white or multicolor, and therefore give us the colors that we'll need to cast our creatures, because a lot of the humans do tend to be white. We got a little bit of green and black mixed in there, but that's the primary color for human kindred. And since all of our creatures are tapping for mana, that means that we can then play more creatures, which can then tap for more mana, and then we can put counters on things, and it can really just kind of snowball out of control. And then, finally, moving on to our last key card, this one is going to be Stoneforge Masterwork. And Stoneforge Masterwork is 1 mana for an artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each other creature you control that shares a creature type with it, and equip for 2. So if we have 3 humans in play, we equip it to one of them, it sees 2 other humans on the board, so it's going to get +2/+2. While that doesn't seem very powerful if we don't have a ton of humans, you've got to keep in mind that the human type tends to go very wide. We tend to make a lot of humans at any given point, so Stoneforge Masterwork can very easily be giving +7, +8, +9, even upwards of +10, +10, and that alone is enough to really just kind of end games, be super aggressive, and just get those hits in where you need them. So those are all of our key cards for this week. And the next thing we're going to do is take a look at some cool interactions in the deck. And these are cards that really synergize with what the deck is trying to do, and at the same time are sometimes just fun cards I want to highlight because I think they deserve a little bit of attention. So the first cool interaction that I want to highlight is between Power Fist and Champion of Lambholt. Power Fist, one of the better equipment in our deck, it's 1 and a green for an artifact equipment. Equipped creature has trample, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, put that many +1/+1 counters on it, and it equips for 2. So essentially, if we have a 1/1 creature that has the Power Fist equipped to it, it'll deal damage, it gets 1 +1/+1 counter, then the next turn it'll deal 2 damage and get 2 counters, then we go to 4 and 8, 16, and so on. And so one of the best creatures that we can put the Power Fist on is going to be Champion of Lambholt, which is 1 green for a 1/1 human warrior. Creatures with power less than Champion of Lambholt's power can't block creatures you control, and whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Champion of Lambholt. This is by far one of the best evasive pieces we can have in this deck, because it's going to continue to get bigger with the +1/+1 counters, and if we can put the Power Fist on the champion and give the champion a ton of +1/+1 counters, now none of our creatures are going to be able to be blocked, meaning we can keep hitting people with the champion, keep getting counters, make things less likely to be blocked, and probably just win the game by running over our opponents. That, though, is only cool interaction number 1, so moving on to cool interaction number 2, in this case we have Fractal Harness and Luxior Giada's Gift. Fractal Harness is X2 and a green for an artifact equipment. When it enters the battlefield, create a 0/0 green and blue fractal creature token, and put X +1/+1 counters on it and attach Fractal Harness to it. Then whenever it attacks, double the number of +1/+1 counters on it, and it equips for 2. Luxior is 1 mana for a legendary artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each counter on it. An equipped permanent isn't a planeswalker and is a creature in addition to its other types. It can equip a planeswalker for 1 or just equip for 3. If we're being perfectly honest, we don't really have planeswalkers, so Luxior is going to be equipped to a creature. But one of the nice things that makes it work with Fractal Harness is if we cast Fractal Harness for 4 mana, so we make a 1/1 Fractal, it is then equipped to it. If we equip Luxior to it, it's going to get +1/+1 because it has 1 counter. Then we go to attack, we double the counters to 2, Luxior is giving it +2 since it has 2 counters, so it's now a 4/4 creature, when last turn it was just a 1/1. So this is going to essentially exponentially double the counters on our creature, because every single time we double the number of +1/+1 counters, we're also doubling the power that it's going to get from Luxior. So being able to put us in a position where just one creature can become a massive threat out of nowhere and also continue to ramp up, forcing our opponents to kill it, and then we simply just swap it over to another creature since they're both equipments and just continue again, making another big threat that our opponents can't deal with. Finally, that is the end of our cool interaction. So the last thing we've got to do for this deck tech is take a look at the price of the deck. And this week, the total deck price came out to $85.64, with the most expensive card being Hammer of Nazan, which is a beautiful card for an equipment deck because it is 4 mana for a legendary artifact equipment. Whenever it or another equipment enters the battlefield under your control, you may attach that equipment to target creature you control. An equipped creature gets +2/+0 and has indestructible, plus it equips for 4. Unfortunately, this is a massive $14.35 price tag, so it is very expensive, but being able to auto-equip our equipments is very powerful, and being able to equip them without spending the mana means that we can spend more of that mana on casting our commanders or casting some of our humans and getting some of the effects out of our cards that we really want, while also still powering up our board by equipping the equipment. So that is the vast majority of our deck tech. This was our first Daily Pride video. If this was something that you're interested in, please do let me know down in the comments. Like I said, I am planning to do one of these videos every single day for the month of June to celebrate Pride Month. This was only our first one with a Femininomenon. So a huge thank you to all of our patrons and channel members who have supported us up to this point. If you would like to join that group of people, check us out on Patreon or right here on YouTube as a channel member. But if that's not your thing, then you can always just like this video and subscribe to the channel. That really helps out, lets me know that you're interested in seeing some more of these. Thank you all so much for watching, and happy Pride 2025, and I'll see you on the other side of the Dungeon Learner's Guide.